morning, you beautiful people. For those of you that don't know, I am Kat Petty, aka Rorschach Cat. If you like Marvel or makeup, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll also be leaving a list of the products I'm using in the description down below. So the first known character we're going to be diving into today is Wanda Maximoff, also known as Wanda Frank, but the name that we all know and love her by is Scarlet Witch. The inception of her character began in 1964 in the Silver Age of comics. Now, as a character, she's definitely changed a lot over the course of time. Her first appearance was in X-Men number 64, in which she is actually a founding member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, led by, who we soon will find out, will be her father, Magneto. Now, originally it was said that the wizard, Robert Frank, from the Golden Age of comics, was her father. Madeline Joyce from the Marvel Mystery Comics. They used to pal around with the likes of Captain America, Namor, and the Submariner, and the Human Torch, and the All-Winter Squad. We first start our story on Transia, when the twins of a local witch named Natalia Maximoff had been abducted by none other than the High Evolutionary. Now, the High Evolutionary, who I'm super excited to cover in videos in the future, is kind of just this evil geneticist. He likes to run experiments on people. So he abducts Natalia Maximoff's kids, kind of for his own selfish needs. He wants to kind of experiment on their DNA and their blood. So in desperate attempts to get her children back, Natalia actually goes to Transia to rescue her children from the High Evolutionary. Now, Natalia found herself in a battle with none other than the Knights of Wendigar, which the Knights of Wendigar were also some weird experiments the High Evolutionary had kind of created to kind of do his evil bidding. And ultimately, she was defeated at the hands of the twins' unnamed father. So Natalia died. I brought up Magneto earlier. For the longest time, thought that Eric Lynchner and Magna were the original biological parents of Wanda Maximoff. Now, as we just learned, that is incorrect. High Evolutionary was on some fuck shit. But before Wanda and Pietro, there was actually a daughter that they had conceived named Anya. Due to a workplace quarrel with Eric and his boss got pretty irate and sent a mob after Eric and his family. So, when Eric came home from work one day, he found that the cabin he was staying in had completely been engulfed in flames. In desperate attempts to try to get Anya out of the cabin, it was kind of too late. Due to the loss of his daughter Anya, Magneto goes full scorched earth and kills everyone around him except his pregnant wife, Magda. Magda, terrified of what she's just seen, seeing only a small display of Eric's true power, decides to flee in fear. Magda then comes across a place in Transia, a neighboring nation known as Wendigo Mountain. So pregnant Magda goes to Wendigo Mountain seeking refuge and meets another High Evolutionary experiment named Bova. Bova takes Magda in, helps her through her pregnancy, and when Magda finally gives birth, she unfortunately gives birth to a stillborn. Still grieving from losing Eric, and now her child, still in fear of what Eric may do to her if he finds out that their children had died, Magda flees. And while she's traveling the harsh elements on Mount Wendigo, she dies. Now, stay with me. While Magda is giving birth on Wendigo Mountain, at the same time, personally invited by none other than the High Evolutionary himself, the Wizard and Miss America show up to seek refuge so that they can deliver their child as well. Miss America and Magda end up giving birth at the same time. And while the fate of Magda's child is unknown, Miss America actually gives birth to a stillborn and passes away during childbirth. Now the messed up part is that Bova and the High Evolutionary actually try to pass off the Maximoff twins as Robert Frank's own children. But being devastated at his wife's death, he then abandons them. Now, after many experiments at the hands of the High Evolutionary and Cant actually bestowing powers upon Wanda himself, eventually they're placed in the hands of none other than the cousins of Natalia Maximoff herself. Now, after a series of tragic events, their adopted mother, Myra Maximoff, has then been killed. Django Maximoff, thinking he lost his entire family, then kind of wanders around just in his depression, leaving the twins to kind of wander around Europe for the next few years, just alone and by themselves. So while Pietro and Wanda are roaming around Europe, just kind of minding their own business, Wanda's powers kind of start developing a little bit more. And soon, she pisses off an angry mob. Well, once this mob finds out that she is mystical and a witch, you could say, they then try to attack her. She's then saved by none other than, you guessed it, Magneto. So, feeling obligated and forever in his debt since he rescued them, they end up joining the Brotherhood of Mutants. Kind of against their will. So the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants ends up collapsing. And after its collapse, eventually, Pietro and Wanda both move on to much bigger and better things. In the 1983 comic Vision and the Scarlet Witch, titled Revelations, Magneto actually shows up to kind of get the family back together. He actually announces that he is the grandfather of the child of Quicksilver and Crystal. This comes to a pretty big shock to Wanda and Pietro, because this finally answers the question of who their dad really is. Now, initially, they definitely expected hostility. It had been quite some time since their last interaction. And this is definitely a very shocking moment to them, because this finally answers the question of who their father really is. In 1965, Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver finally join the Avengers. After many years, they finally get to leave their troubled past of the evil brotherhood behind them. Even at a younger age, while she was still under the care of the Maximoffs, a small coven approached her to try to get her to join and show her the ways of the mystic arts. Cant literally put a halt to that and said she will be a part of no coven. She actually meets said Agatha Harkness, which brings everything that she's been told from a young age completely full circle. And during this time period, her powers grew rapidly, and so did her control over them. I think I speak for all of us when I say we're all pretty excited to see what happens next for this mystical Marvel legend. I really want to hear what your theories are in the comments down below. What will happen with Wanda and Vision? Where will her storyline go? Will it ultimately lead to the House of M with the Multiverse of Madness? Stay tuned for our next video when I'll be covering another amazing Marvel character. And remember, stay marvelous.